Welcome back to Visual Design for Multimedia. Today we're going to talk about an advanced animation technique in After Effects known as the graph editor. Any of you that have ever worked in any 3D modeling animation platforms like Maya, Cinema 4D, you're probably all familiar with some variation on a graph editor. It lets you visualize your keyframes through graph lines. And After Effects has this too. So we're going to do this with kind of a classic way with this arrow illustration. So I've got an arrow that I created with shape layers, and I'm just going to animate it real quick, okay? So I'm going to set a position keyframe, and then I'm going to work it out to 2 seconds here. Let me just zoom in on my timeline. Actually, I'll do it to like 1 second. How's that sound? And I'm going to move it. Okay, cool. So now I have a very simple animation, very linear. If I, let me get my preview range in here because I don't need a full minute of it being previewed. So I'm going to come down here, zoom back in on it. Cool. I'm going to use this guy to expand it out a little bit. There we go. Now I can really see it. And if I preview that, very linear. You know, it's very rare that you're going to have a linear thing like this. I mean, you might have something looping across your screen that's just very flat and linear, but a lot of times we want to add some motion or a little more subtlety to it, right? So if I right-click or take both these keyframes, and you can see all of the in-between keyframes that the computer is automatically putting in are evenly spaced. They're all perfectly linear, right? If I right-click on these keyframes, though, and go and do Easy Ease, you're going to see how those distances have changed. They start closer together, then they get wider apart, and then they come closer together again. And if I illustrate that, you see it has a little more physics to it now. It kind of starts slow and then slows down at the end. Speeds up in the middle and slows down at the end, right? And if I look at this, we can take this now. I'm going to undo, and I'm going to show you what it looks like in the graph editor. So all you got to do is select your keyframes. And this little button right here that's part of our kind of palette for the timeline here of the main items in the palette, click on that. And now you're going to see these keyframes represented in a different way. They are showing us position over time. So now you can see it increases its position over time. It's going from left to right here. And so we have this vertical of its X position. We don't have anything on like Y position because it's not going up. It's only going on the X position. This Y position is represented by the green. So in your position anchors, you have that, right? So if I come back here and click on this guy. Whoops, I lost my keyframes there for a second. Bear with me. There we go. If I click on position, you can see the X, those X keyframes again, right? So that's very linear. It's a very straight line. Watch what happens. I can select them just like I'd select keyframes on the main line. If I right-click on that and go to Easy Ease, now it's an S-curve, right? So that's how it represents. It starts out slow, it ramps up, gets fast, and then ramps back down at the end. And you can also see that here in the keyframe represent the in-between frames, the tween frames between the keyframes that I have set, which is just 2 keyframes, but that's the computer figuring out for every frame per second. There's 24 of them there, if that's what we have our frame rate set at. I believe I did. Oh, no, my frame rate is actually set to 24.97. So if I change that to 24, you'll actually see everything change just a hair. There's not as many of those dots in there now because that represents the 24 frames per second, right? And I stop exactly at 1 second. So there's 24 dots there. But you can see how the Easy Ease changed that, right? And now what's cool is, you know, I could also undo, well, actually I'm going to keep that, but I'm going to choose my selections here and come back under this here. And I could also just choose one at a time. I could do Ease In instead of Easy Ease. And I could also do this one as cancel, right-click on it there, Ease In. And that's basically what Easy Ease did. This one would be ease out if I was going into the next frame. Then it would ease out the other side of it. So if I do this one, let me try ease out on this side. Yeah, it's pretty much the same as the Easy Ease right now. But we have these great controls down here at the bottom. If I want to, I can convert these back to linear. So I could change that keyframe back to linear. And now let's see what it looks like. It kind of comes straight out of the gate and then slows down, right? or undo, and I could turn this one to linear, coming down here to the bottom again, and convert selected keyframe to linear. And then I have slow down and then speed up right into it and flash, right? The other thing I can do is I can add Beziers to both of these. So if I take both of these keyframes, this is the most popular, and you would do easy ease, then it allows me to come into each of these and actually turn a handle. Well, that's interesting. I'm not sure why my handle is not coming out. Bear with me. Well, I just did something. Oh, let's turn this off for a second. Just undo for a second. Oh, I must have deleted it. Whoops. Sorry about that. So if I come in here on my keyframes, I can click on an individual keyframe. Usually if I hold down this option, I can drag out. Why is that Bezier not coming out now? Bear with me for a second. Usually these just work automatically. There you go, back to linear. Let's convert this one. I'm just zooming in on it a little bit more. See, I can change its position by moving it up and down however I want, and then it's getting shorter on the path each time I do that. But I'm going to bring that back out, and I'm going to try real hard here to get you the Bezier. Usually you get the Bezier handles and then we can start working with them, but for some reason right now I'm not getting any Bezier handles, and I'm not sure it's because I easy ease these or whatnot. So let's go ahead back to where this was all linear before I turned on the easy ease. All right, let's try it there. I think something is not visible right now, so bear with me. Definitely fit everything to view, which is nice. I can stretch it out, fit all graphs. Oh, that separates my X and Y. There we go. So they're not just in one position, but I can actually see X position versus Y position. That's kind of nice. There we go. That brought my Bezier handle in. I'm not sure why the Bezier handles weren't visible before, but as soon as I turned this on and separated them, I was able to see my Bezier handles. It must be something on the position. I was doing some other ones earlier, and position you must have to separate them to be able to see the individual handles. That kind of makes sense though. So now I can do some fun things where I can actually spread these out, and I can click on this one and give it a handle as well. And I can do some more extreme examples of this X position over time, right? So I could have this one really kind of like stretch out the lead of warming up and then letting go, right? So let me zoom out just a hair. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then it slows, and then boom, snap, just like an arrow hitting a target. So I'm starting to get all sorts of subtleties, right? And same thing, I could make this come out really fast and then have this one. So it slows down at the end, so it comes out of the gate really fast and then slows down to a little screeching halt, or actually a nice slow gradual halt. So this is where the power of the graph editor, you can really, really customize how you want these. If you want something to be more linear, if you want something to be gradual, if you want to have a sense of physics and motion in anything that you're doing. And like I said, you can grab both of these guys. And then actually when I select both of them, you see I can actually change. It gives me this nice little handle around it. I don't even have to hold Option down to do this. I can scale them either way. So value-wise, like how far the distance is on it, or time scale, which is left to right. So that's kind of a nice one when I have a group of keyframes. More than 2 is fine, and then you can do all that scaling as well. And you can see that amount is changing each time on the X position that I mess with that based on where my cursor is. If I, you can also convert that to like a hold. And actually I haven't done that in a while, but that'll put like, I believe, like a pause on it so it doesn't move at all. And then it jumps one to the next. It kind of goes all one position and then just jumps right to the next. So I'm going to undo that. What else? Let's see. just to zoom in. So like I said before, this fits it all to the graph. I believe I haven't actually used the zoom, but anyway, you can always zoom in and out with this guy here, which is what I like to do. Or if you have them set, just click on that to kind of get them to frame. But that was a good one to know. That kind of held me up for a second. Separate the dimensions on the X and Y. Because other ones don't make you do that. Like scale definitely will. So if I rotate this as it's going, so I'll set a rotation. And then as we get to the next keyframe, oops, sorry, I zoomed out a little bit too much. Back on 1. And I rotate it. Let's give it like a little downward angle on that. There we go. Now I can grab any of those, and you can see right out of the gate, I don't have to do the separate. There isn't even a button to highlight there. So only if it has multiple dimensions. So that would be for scaling and also for position. You have that X, Y. You have to do that separate to be able to get these Bezier handles to come out. So. But I can play around with this as well to try to match it or complement whatever I'm doing in the animation. It's almost like it's digging the nose in as it comes to a halt. So you can have a lot of fun with these and play and get really, really subtle timings out of it. And that applies to any keyframes you lay down. So I have some other animations here. This is one using like a range selector on the type. If I select these guys, I believe I had easy ease on them, and I come to the graph editor, then you can see these, and I can go ahead and zoom in so it fills my whole frame, and we can see the little subtle shifts that happen. There you go, get that there. And I can click on any of these individual guys and kind of change the timing of how this type comes in. You know, I could bulge it way up, and then it's like super flash as it comes out. Wha-bam. Or I can bring it down and let it remain more subtle, but I could still guide that up and down a little bit more. So now we have a way more subtle pop that comes off of that. So there's a lot to play with there, a whole lot to just, you know, scale in and out and play with those Bezier handles a little bit and kind of see where you want them. And, you know, like I said, you can convert these things and have an auto Bezier on it, which will kind of add an auto curve, or you can make it linear again, or you can put a pause so it just like holds one until the next keyframe and then jumps to that value. There's a lot of options here. You can edit the selected keyframe, which just brings up these kind of guys again. And then I can add a handle to just one side of it as well. I don't have to have so that I have handles on both sides of the keyframes. So if I zoom out on this guy a little bit, right now this keyframe only has one side to it. But if I kept going afterwards and changed this value again, I believe if I change the end value, or actually I'm not sure what I changed on that guy. I think it might have been the starting value. Oh, well, I can't remember on that one, but let's go back to this guy, to the position. And there we go. So if I go back to here, and then I make this guy come down a little bit, over and down, so there's my Y has changed now as well. Now you see I have handles out of both sides of that Bezier. So I have this side to handle as well. And it doesn't have to be even or locked or anything like that. Like I can totally change the range of motion of how these are going to dip out. This guy doesn't have Beziers on it yet, so I have to turn that on. But you can see how I can get those working. And you know, this one doesn't change at all, so why mess with it? But right here, if I want to have a similar range of motion, this is actually making it dip. Almost like a bounce and then down. So the different shapes are going to give you these different types of motion, a little sense of anticipation, a little sense of gravity, a little sense of physics. I'll go ahead and stop there. I hope that helps you understand just at a deeper level of how you can get these subtleties in your animation using the graph editor and After Effects, what to look out for, how some of these more complex ones that have multiple dimensions on them, how you're going to want to open that up with the separate dimensions, and then how you can activate Bezier handles, ease in, ease out, or easy ease, and then how you can customize it from there. All right, as always, thanks for tuning in, and please reach out if you have any questions.